Rob from Buckeyes Battle Cry here. So the list is out for the Joe Moore Award semifinalists. For those of you who don't know what the Joe Moore Award is, it is awarded to the best offensive line in all of college football. So I'm going to do part one today, and I'll end up doing part one tomorrow. The teams I'm going to be talking about today is number 16 Army, number 5 Indiana, Iowa, and Notre Dame. So let's take a look at Army. They've allowed 3 sacks all season. They have the number one ranked rushing offense in the country, averaging 334.9 yards per game. But let's take a look at their defense. From what I looked up, not very impressive. The best ranked defense they played so far is Air Force, and they're ranked number 58th in the country. They're 131st in team sacks, and they're ranked 101st in rushing defense. Though Army rushed for 207 total yards against Air Force, and their starting running back had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Great outing, but again, no other teams in terms of total defense, team sacks, and rushing defense come close. And you're probably wondering why. Well, why is he talking about team sacks? It's all about being able to protect the quarterback as well. It's not just about being able to open up holes and run the ball down a team's throat. So the deal breaker for this game, their only contender that they play all season is number 8 Notre Dame. They have the number 7th ranked total defense, the 41st ranked rush defense, and the number 18th ranked in terms of team sacks. Now, if you go on the NCAA site and you look at the team stats with rankings, if you look at team sacks, there's not that much separation in the top 20. I mean, you got 27 sacks, 26 sacks, 28, 29. Not that big of a separation until you start getting to the top 10 where you have teams who have over 30. But yeah, that deal breaker for them to be able to move on to being a finalist is to see how their performance is against Notre Dame. Now let's look at number 5 Indiana. Surprise team this season. Well, not if you googled Kurt Signetti and see that this dude wins pretty much everywhere he goes. Hats off to him. He uh he he worked the transfer portal. He brought players over from James Madison. He brought over players that produce and will fit his system well. That is the key to success. And he has been able to bring them to their first 10-0 season in all of Indiana football program history. That is really impressive. But let's look at the stats. They have allowed 11 sacks all season. They're number 47 in rushing offense, averaging 176.7 yards per game. Best defenses they played so far. Um, Nebraska has the 16th ranked total defense and the number 13th ranked rushing defense. And Indiana rushed for 215 yards against Nebraska, who has a top 15 rush defense. Very impressive. But let's look at Michigan. So Michigan has top 30, top 40 overall defense, but they have a really great they have a really good rush defense. We all know why. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, and Josiah Stewart, all first rounders. Um, and Indiana only rushed for 40 yards. And I was just shocked by the second half stat for Indiana rushing offense. They rush for a total of negative 2 rushing yards all the way up till the mid fourth quarter. Now it seems like they've blown out all these teams, but if we really look at these teams, no, don't get me wrong, Nebraska's not a bad team, but they're they're not like they're an okay team. They're not a good team. They're not a great team. They're an okay team. But as soon as Indiana runs into this talent gap on for Michigan's defense, and yeah, I know that Nebraska has the number 13th ranked rush defense, and Michigan has the number 12th ranked rush defense, but Nebraska does not have three first rounders on their defensive line. Michigan does, and it showed that the talent gap showed in terms of Indiana's talent and Michigan's talent. It didn't. Their Joe Moore Award semifinalists did not hold up against Michigan's rush defense, and they also gave up 4 sacks. Will they see a defensive line like that? Yeah, they will. They will. And that's going to be against Ohio State, and that's the deal breaker game for them. If they don't show up for that game and their offensive line does well, they're not moving on to the next round. So Ohio State currently has the number 2 ranked defense in the country. Actually, wait, no, it's actually it's actually number 1. I for some reason I wrote 2 and 1. Okay. It's actually ranked number 1. They have the number 7th ranked rush defense in the country and the number 18 team sacks with 26 all season. Now, people are talking about comparing Ohio State and Michigan's defensive line. I think Michigan has the edge, but by a little bit. And what I think is going to happen in this Ohio State Indiana game, yeah, Kirk Cignetti, he's gonna call the game. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be a dogfight. But in terms of talent, I think Ohio State has more talent on their defense than Indiana has on their offense. Don't get me wrong. Kirk Cignetti brought over players who produce at other Division I schools, but the talent gap is going to show once again, and I don't expect them to do much better against Ohio State than they did against Michigan. All right, let's look at Iowa. They currently have the number 20th ranked rush offense, averaging 208.1 yards per game. They've allowed 13 sacks, not really good at protecting the quarterback. The best defense they played so far, which for me, this was a deal breaker because I don't think they play anybody else that's has a noteworthy defense. They played Ohio State, number 1 defense, number 2 rush defense, number 18 team sacks, averaging 26 for the season. So let's look at the stats for that game against Ohio State. They rushed for 116 yards, but don't be fooled by that overall stat. Ohio State pulled their first string defense. They put in their second and third string, and that is when Iowa started to pad their stats. So that's when Caleb Johnson was able to pad his stats. It was in garbage time against the second and third string. He broke a big 40, 50-yard run into the end zone. But again, don't be fooled. Before Ohio State pulled its starters, he had only had 76 yards on the ground. So for me, that deal breaker was blown. They're not moving on to the finals. Let's look at number 8 ranked Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is 31 for sacks allowed. They've given up 12. All right, not much better than Iowa, having trouble protecting the quarterback. But this is impressive right here. They have the number 12th ranked rushing offense, averaging 214.8 yards per game. the best defense they played. Now, I looked at their schedule. They didn't play, you know, really notable defenses, but there was Georgia Tech, who currently has the number 15th ranked rush defense in the country, and Notre Dame rushed for 186 yards that game, and they also gave up 0 sacks. So that's pretty impressive. Uh, so their deal breaker game, I'm pretty sure they play Army on November 23rd, and Army currently has the number 6th rank uh, total defense. They have the number 3rd rank rushing defense, giving up only 82.6 yards per game, and they're number 47 in team sacks. They've had 20 on the season. So there is my part one of the Joe Moore Award semifinalist list. I'll do part two tomorrow. And in my part two, I'll give you my thoughts on who is going to move on to the next round. Go Bucks.